The Sandman, written by the legendary writer Neil Gaiman, who wrote Coraline, American Gods, Stardust, a lot. I just finished reading this comic book series about 3-4 days ago, and it took me just about a year to complete it. Um, it's not that long, but I was reading a lot of other things, so it took me about a year. But for those of you who don't know the Sandman story, who've never heard of it, or have maybe heard of the Netflix show but never seen it, the Netflix show is great. The first season's great. It's almost exactly the same. It's very faithful. That was my introduction to it. But I'm not gonna spend too much time talking about the Netflix series. So essentially, the story is about Morpheus, who is Dream. He's the anthropomorphic personification of Dream. So he is not a god. In a simple way of understanding, he's the god of dreams, but the story and the lore makes it clear that he's not a god. He is part of the endless. There's death, there's destruction, there's desire, delirium, despair, and destiny. The endless are very interesting. You learn more about them much later in the story, but in the beginning, it's just very simple. Essentially, some selfish human beings, that want immortality, rich, nothing's enough. They're doing, I think, witchcraft, and they're trying to capture death, to bend death to their will so that they could be immortal. On accident, they capture Dream because death is more powerful. I forget the exact specifics of why it's Dream specifically, but I know that death is more powerful, so that has something to do with it. So they capture Dream and they strip him of his power, and he's in a glass cage in a sphere, and he's stuck in there for 70 years until he finally gets out. He escapes. And the first season of the show and most of the first volume of the first book, it's just about him regaining his power and just going on an adventure, on a journey to find his things. And he has a ruby, he has a bag of sand, and a helm. It's like a really sick looking helmet mask thing. And all those things are imbued with his power, so he needs it to be at his full strength, so he could go back to the dreaming again. The idea, it is dreaming. It's not a planet, it's not a realm. I guess it is a realm, but it's just dreaming, whatever that is. It's the entity, the idea of dreaming. He is Dream. That's the simple synopsis of what gets the ball rolling, what starts the story off. And I mean, there's so much more. I mean, that's, like I said, that's the first season of the Netflix show. And while having read everything, the story is so much more than that, But it's very much connected. It's like a snowball effect of consequences. That's like the entire comic book series. So, having finished the comic series, I gotta say, I feel overwhelmed. I feel sad because it's over. I feel sad because I've been reading this for a year. Specific plot points are sad. Yeah, I'm obviously not gonna say, because the point of this video, I want to not just connect to fellow Sandman readers, but to also like spread the word for younger people who maybe haven't heard of this series. And I know that a manga like Berserk, that's it very much has a life right now. It's very much in pop culture right now, even though it's older, and it's very popular amongst younger people. So I would hope for Sandman to regain that momentum again, And the Netflix series is a great tool for that, to start that. So I'm a bit overwhelmed because the story is there's a lot that goes on. So it's not one continuous focused story throughout. It's very much like an anthology almost, and many people will love that. But me personally, I'm not the biggest fan of anthology type of stuff. I don't love Black Mirror. I don't love shows like that it's like every episode's a different story, or like in older anime, how there's a lot of filler, like flavor of the week, this week's enemy. So like it could be fun, but I'm only down if it's very character driven. And usually these types of stories in the comic book are Morpheus is involved, again Dream, he's involved, but he's never like the focus. It's only the main storylines, the main story arcs that he's involved with. And so I gotta say that's a little bit of a negative for me for my personal taste. But the writing objectively, the story, the character of Morpheus is so interesting. I love how gothic it is. I love how dark it is. The world, the lore. I mean, Neil started this in the 80s, so I love, and I personally love the 80s. So I love just the aesthetic of 80s. The 80s goth scene is like all over this comic book series, you know? So that's really sick. If you're into fantasy, dark fantasy, really meaningful, deeper stories that isn't just superficial fantasy, Sandman is definitely that type of story for you. It's so profound that, like, again, back to me saying how overwhelmed I feel. I feel like I understand the story for what the story is telling on a surface level, like what Neil is trying to tell. I understand that story, so I don't feel overwhelmed by that because it's like a mind blowing, crazy, weird concept. I feel more overwhelmed because I read so much, and I it's one of those things that after you finish the last story, the last issue, I feel like there's a big retrospective that hits, at least it hits me, and I immediately feel like I need to reread it. Like there's more I need to understand. There's a lot of underlying themes here, and like there's more that Neil is that he's wanting. There's more that Neil is trying to say, and I feel it. I don't know it. I don't know exactly, but I could feel it. Like I feel like my subconscious has picked up on everything. I mean, the subconscious always does, but I just feel like it's there. The feeling, the impression is there in me, and I just need to peel back the layers and really dig deep. But I don't want to just. I've already done this. I've kind of skimmed through all 4 of the books I have, right there, and it still doesn't do it. Like I feel like I need to be re-immersed, which is crazy because I just finished. But there's some really deeper things going on. Some things I don't want to quite say. It leads to Morpheus and his like psychology and his emotional journey that I want to like dig deep again. And again, the only way to dig deep on that specifically is to reread it. And the second thing is that if you don't know, Shakespeare, he doesn't have a big role in the series, but he has a significant one. And he comes out in the beginning. And again, it's in season 1, his first introduction. And he comes out 2 more times, and they're very significant. The 2 more times he comes out in, it's not a cameo, it's like a very specific, significant role. And he has a very specific role to play in this story. I don't consider this a spoiler because I'm not saying a plot point, but the last issue is the last meeting, the last puzzle piece to the story of William Shakespeare and Morpheus, and that left such an impression on me. And I just feel like I want to read some Shakespeare now, like to understand exactly what Neil is saying, And I was in theater in high school, and I remember reading some Shakespeare, but honestly, I don't remember. I'm not even going to say barely remember. I don't remember, So I want to immerse myself in some of the Shakespeare that is referenced in the Sandman story. And again, just to understand. That's just how I am. I'm a nerd, I love to dig deep. I love to immerse myself in these stories. Similar with what I'm doing with Tolkien, like I really want to dig deep in there. So I kind of want to do the same thing with this. So I'm not done. My journey with this is not done. There's a really great audio drama that exists with like a pretty awesome cast. So I think that'll be how I re-immerse myself in Sandman. Read some Shakespeare, as I said. So maybe I'll be back with another video in a few months once I've uncovered everything, get the answers to the questions I have. I guess that's pretty much it. That's pretty much all I wanted to say here in this video, to express to you guys, to connect with fellow Sandman readers, to hear your guys' insights and just your experience with Sandman, because it's an incredibly popular comic book, and also, what are your thoughts on the Netflix series? I think it's pretty much universally loved, Some casting choices I have a problem with, but the story, the writing, the direction. That's what shines in that show. And at the end of the day, that's what really matters. So I can't wait for season 2, and I'll definitely be covering season 2 on this channel when it comes out, when the trailer drops. I really want to see, because season 2, if it tells the story I think it's gonna tell, because that's the next story arc with Lucifer. It's gonna be so sick, so just so crazy to see in live action. And it seems like, based on some casting choices, that they're gonna adapt it faithfully again. So it'll be crazy to see it in live action. But yeah, thanks for watching.